Hire Indians to bash India, traditionally a Democrat mouthpiece, now doing Bezos' dirty work. Fake news, propaganda, and now hit jobs. This is the reality of US mainstream media.
Hello, you're watching Explained on NewsX. I'm Uday Pratap Singh. We're often told as journalists in India that just because a few journalists have offices made in Washington and London, that they know better than us. So much so that they can dictate and lecture us about our own country. Well, we only have ourselves to blame to put them on that pedestal. A few days back, this list of the Pulitzer finalists in the international category from the Washington Post went viral. When ex-users saw the stories that they had covered, a pattern emerged. The first nomination says, and I quote, "Inside the vast digital campaign by Hindu nationalists to inflame India." The second one, "Under India's pressure, Facebook-led propaganda and hate speech thrive." The next one, "He live-streamed his attacks on Indian Muslims. YouTube gave him an award." India uses widespread internet blackouts to mark domestic turmoil. The 2024 Pulitzer lineup confirms the pattern. Every shortlisted piece from the Washington Post was meant to attack India's growth story. Some further research into articles shows who's writing them. This is an interesting list. Jerry Shea, who wrote the story about some digital campaigns by Hindu nationals, is Washington Post's Jerusalem bureau chief and was then their India chief. His propaganda has previously been called out by notable Indians like Kanwal Sibal and Vikram Sood. The story, "Under India's Pressure, Facebook-led propaganda and hate speech thrive," was co-authored by Jerry Shea and a man named Joseph Men, a journalist from California. He's also worked on series like Rising India, Toxic Tech, which makes it clear who the target again was. The story, "He live-streamed his attacks on Indian Muslims. YouTube gave him an award," was in fact written by an Indian. Pranshu Verma is the New Delhi bureau chief for Washington Post. He graduated from the Columbia University in 2019 and is in fact an Indian himself. The latest one in this list is the story labelled "Exclusive." The Indian government allegedly directed $3.9 billion from the state-owned life insurance corporation to India's second richest man, Gautam Adani's businesses. Amidst the mogul's legal and financial challenges, the story is backed by the US-based organizations like Organized Crime and Corruption Reporting Project, which has been linked by being funded by the US themselves previously. Well, a December 2024 investigation by an organization called Mediapart revealed that the US government funded 50% of OCCRP's budget. LIC issued a detailed rebuttal to the allegations leveled by the Washington Post. LIC on Saturday clarified that there was no document or plan that allegedly creates a roadmap for fund infusion into the Adani Group by the state-owned insurance firm. Reports have refuted the claims too. LIC's total exposure to the Adani Group, equity and debt combined, is less than 1% of its 41 lakh crore portfolio. As per audited financials, LIC's exposure in the Adani Group is less than 2% of the conglomerate's total debt, helmed by India's second richest man, Gautam Adani. Global investors like US largest funds, BlackRock, Apollo, Japan's largest banks, Mizuho, MUFG, and Germany's second largest bank, DZ Bank, have also invested in Adani debt in recent months, reflecting global confidence in the group. In fact, the largest investments in Adani Group have not come from the state insurer but from major US and global insurers. Reports also said Adani's total debt of 2.6 lakh crores is backed by 90,000 crore rupees in annual operating profit and 60,000 crore rupees in cash. This means that Adani could knock off its entire debt in under 3 years if it pours new infrastructure investments. On the equity side, Adani is not LIC's largest holding, not even in the top 10 investments. LIC's top investments are in companies like Reliance, ITC, HDFC Bank, SBI, L&T and Infosys, as per the list released by exchanges. So what was the motive behind targeting the Adani Group again and again? Was it a vacuum after Hindenburg shut down? Was some destabilizing tactic needed ahead of India's winter session? Well, we don't quite know. During Operation Sindoor, Washington Post landed itself in a suit after it claimed widespread fake news about attacks on Pakistan. The article, titled "How Misinformation Overtook Indian Newsrooms Amidst Conflict with Pakistan," authored by Karishma Mehrotra, was first published on the 4th of June. It painted a grim picture of India's media ecosystem, allegedly flooded with false reports during a tense military standoff with Pakistan. It first claimed that a WhatsApp message from Prasar Bharati had informed them that Asim Munir had been arrested. They retracted it later and then attributed it to some employee of Prasar Bharati. There was no record, no verification, no second source. Just hearsay on an encrypted app. In the correction, Washington Post now claims that the information was passed on by an employee of Prasar Bharati. Which employee? Well, there's no information on that. That's not all. Washington Post has a history of propaganda when it comes to their coverage on India. When Ram Mandir was being inaugurated in Ayodhya, they spread hateful campaigns. This one headline read, Modi's consecration of controversial Hindu temple caps years-long campaign. The destruction of a mosque on the site in Ayodhya, India, triggered by deadly religious riots in 1992. Well, one would think that after Pulwama, a newspaper in the US would like to focus on terrorists. But the Washington Post article read, after Pulwama, the Indian media proves it is the BJP's propaganda machine. The target again, very clear. During the farmers' protests in 2020, where the contention was the 3 farm laws, Washington Post somehow linked it to restoring democracy in India. After reintegration of Jammu and Kashmir, the focus was on cutting Kashmir's autonomy, using words like disputed region of Kashmir. Since Washington Post worries about who the Indian media works for, let's understand who they work for. The Washington Post is owned by Amazon founder Jeff Bezos, who purchased the newspaper in 2013 through his private investment company, Nash Holdings LLC. Bezos bought the paper in August 2013 for $250 million, taking over ownership from the Graham family. In Jan 2025, editorial cartoonist Ann Telnes resigned from the Washington Post and published a blog post titled Why I'm Quitting the Washington Post. She criticized in this post the paper for allegedly refusing to run a cartoon critical of the relationship between American billionaires and President Donald Trump, calling the decision dangerous for a free press. Tene's blog post and the nature of a cartoon sparked conversations about the paper's ownership under Bezos. In Feb 2025, Bezos announced that the opinion section of the Washington Post would give voice only to opinions that support personal liberties and free markets, and divergent opinions would not be published by the Post. So who does the Washington Post work for? Well, in a 1977 Rolling Stone magazine article, the CIA and the media, reporter Carl Beinstein wrote that by 1953, CIA Director Alan Dulles oversaw the media network, which had major influence over 25 newspapers and wire agencies. Amongst those in the list were Alfred Friendly, managing editor of the Washington Post. According to a 1998 study in communication research, African Americans have been overrepresented in news reports on crime as the perpetrators and underrepresented as the people reacting to or suffering from it. In fact, according to Michelle Alexander in a book, The New Jim Crow, many stories of the attack of the crack crisis of the mid-90s, 80s broke out in the media. In these stories, African Americans were featured as crack whores. The deaths of the NBA player Len Bias and the NFL player Don Rogers from cocaine overdose only added to the media frenzy. Alexander claimed in a book, between October 1988 and October 1989, the Washington Post alone ran 1,565 stories about the drug scourge. So do these people deserve the right to lecture India on how our media should be run, how our country should be run? Well, absolutely not.
Hire Indians to bash India, traditionally a Democrat mouthpiece, now doing Bezos' dirty work. Fake news, propaganda, and now hit jobs. This is the reality of US mainstream media.